May Allah heal you from whatever pain you are suffering from. May Allah heal you from whatever pain you are suffering from.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen. Amma ba'd, fa'awudu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulullah.
Salatu wassalamu alayka ya
Wa
Rasulullah.
ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah.
As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabiyallah.
Salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabiyallah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurallah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurallah.
MashaAllah. Viewers of Madani Channel, welcome to Spiritual Cures. This is a weekly program at the moment. Before we begin, I'm going to give you a blessing of reciting Durud Pak upon the Prophet of Allah sallallahu ta'ala wasallam. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu ta'ala wasallam is reported to have said that whoever recites 1,000 salat upon me in a day, he shall not die until he has seen his place in paradise. MashaAllah. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. Yourself?
Alhamdulillah.
You know, I like to give a blessing of Durud Pak at the beginning of every program, whatever we do. And I think it's more important when it comes to spiritual cures, because I think Durud Pak in itself is a spiritual cure. It's probably the best spiritual cure. If you cannot tune in to a spiritual cure program, if you cannot get a wazifa of the Maktab of the Islami, then just keep on reciting Durud Pak, inshallah, and that will hopefully be the best spiritual cure you can have. So I just wanted to talk to our viewers really about something that we all have, and me, you, the Savarbai, the richest person in the world, the poorest person in the world, we all have the same amount. Yeah, it's not the money, but it's time. We all have the same amount of time. But the question is, how do we utilize our time? Nowadays, when we talk to people about our time, they think that, I haven't got time for anything. Our lives are so busy, but we do have time. And what happens is that the problem is we don't know how to manage our time. And if we learn how to manage our time, we learn about the importance of our time, and we learn about the fact that our time is running out. It is stated in Tafsir Kabir that a religious elder stated that I learned the meaning of the second verse of Surah Al-Asr from an ice seller. Someone was selling ice, and he was exclaiming, "People be merciful to me, the one whose goods are melting." As in, being merciful to me and purchase my product. Meaning he had a block of ice, he was selling blocks of ices. And what was happening is that the blocks of ice, he was saying, be merciful to me, buy off me, because otherwise my ice is going to melt, I'm going to disappear, and I'm going to have nothing to sell. In the same way where Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, indeed man is in loss. Surah Al-Asr, indeed man is in loss, because by the token of time, indeed man is in loss. In the same way that the ice seller, the ice is diminishing, the diminishing and diminishing and diminishing, and what happens is he cannot sell it. In the same way our life is such, viewers of the channel, that whilst we have this amount of life, for argument's sake, you can do so much with it. But as your time passes and you have less and less and less, then there's less you can do with it. In the same way that the ice seller, when he has a big block of ice, he can sell it for more than what he can sell from here. And then what happens is when the ice is completely turned to water, nobody will buy anything off him. In the same way, when our life is finished, then our book of deeds is closed. And it's something that we need to ponder about and something that we need to think about. But this is something that we need to ponder and think about, viewers of the channel. Time just runs out. And what happens is we make excuses. We make excuses about, our time, that, what we're doing with our time. And what we need to understand is, as Muslims, the first thing that we need to understand is why we were created. And if we can understand why we were created, then we come up towards our goal. Some people say that this person, he was born to be a king. He was born to be a leader. He was born to be a captain. He was born to be a cricketer. He was born to be a footballer. He was born to be this. He was born to be this. What are Muslims born to be? You're thinking, well, same as everybody else, I suppose. No, Muslims are born to die. And if you are born to die, then you need to prepare all your life for what you're born for. In the same way that the king lives all his life preparing for himself to be a king, we are born to die. So our time is here. This is our time. And Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in the Quran that we have been created for no other purpose other than to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. This is our purpose. When you apply for a job and you send a CV off, and in the CV you put your name and you put your job title at the bottom, at the top. And then you put the rest of the details. In the same way that when you get a job description of someone, it'll say something like, no, sales manager. Okay? That'll be the job title. But then it'll have all the detail below of what you've got to do to fulfill your task. Our job title is to worship Allah. The detail is in the Quran, the detail is in the Hadith, the detail is in the Sunnah of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but that is our job description. I'll quickly read the messages because I want to make sure that we have them. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you are well. I just wanted to ask you to do istikhara for a family member who has wrongly been convicted. There is no evidence for the accusation made against him, but he's still not been bailed. Is this nazar? Code name is Iron Brew. I'll send that to you, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you are well and healthy. I want to ask whether you could do istikhara for my uncle. Sometimes he has a mood swings like he's bipolar. He also doesn't work very well and he's going away from his family. Every time we think something good is going to happen in his life, it ends up taking a toll. But Allah is the best planner, so we don't complain, alhamdulillah. When told to pray namaz, he gets angry. I want to know whether this is azmaish or nazar. Please don't mention his name on TV. The code name is Coke. Another one, mashallah, coming through. Yes, it's all drinks, yes. Yeah, I didn't realize, yeah, you're right. Let's see what the next one is. No, the next one's not a drink, but it could be. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. I'm going through a hard time. I have a few long-term eyes illnesses. I'm recently diagnosed osteoarthritis in my whole body. That's a bit, I think, like arthritis in the whole body. Is in a pain. Please do istikhara. And if I have nazar, bad or something, my name, father's name, and the code name is Apple. Apple for this as well. So you could have apple juice as well. But these three at the same time, I think if you can do istikhara, but I think at the same time, and especially the second and the third one, I think if we can do some wazifa for them as well, for the illnesses that they are facing, and inshallah they can benefit from them as well, inshallah. As we were saying, viewers of the channel, we're talking about time, how important time is. And we've said that our purpose in life is to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. And the detail is in the job description. But I just want to give you an example. Imagine your father or your mother sending you to the shops. And they said that you've got to go to the shop. And your job is to go there to buy bread and milk. So you leave your house, you go down the street, and you see people playing football. So you go off and start playing football. And then you think, oh, well, you know what? I've got to go and get the bread and milk. Then you come back and you go a few steps further down the street. Then you see someone playing cricket and you go over there as well. And again, you keep on getting distracted and you never get to the shop. And then what happens is you even forget what you were supposed to do. You forgot what you're supposed to do. You forgot that you were supposed to go to the shop. You forgot you got to get the milk and bread, and you come back to your dad. Is your dad going to be happy with you? In the same way, this purpose of life has been given us, and we get distracted here, there, and everywhere. And a time will come where we will come back not to our dad, but to the Creator. And when we come back to our Creator and we forgot our purpose in life and we've not fulfilled our purpose in life, then what answer are we going to give? Do you realize that time is something that you will be questioned about? How did you spend your youth? How did you spend your wealth? How did you spend your time? How did you spend your time? How did you spend your youth? How did you spend your life? How did you spend your time? So time we all have. It's how we utilize our time. You know, when you hear about someone's passing away and then you find out that it's the birthday and you think, well, they only just passed away. A year's gone so quickly. Time flashes by. And so it's something that we need to be worried about our utilization of our time. This is what I'm saying. Time is flying by and we don't even realize it. There's people that passed away. And when you try and remember when they passed away, and you think, well, you know, maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years. Was it 10 years? I don't believe it was 10 years ago. It was. It was 7 years ago. This is how quick time is flying. Do we remember? We remember all our achievements. We might even remember, you know, the times that we, you know, went on Umrah, they read the Quran, spent time in itikaf, give money in the way of Allah. I remember us donating to this project, to that project, to the floods, to the wells, to the masjid. We remember all that. And maybe you remember the fact that, alhamdulillah, you read your namaz 5 times a day and you did your best to make sure that you were in Jamaat these 5 times a day. But do you remember what you did to displease your Rabb? And just think to yourself, if you committed one sin every day, that's 365 sins that you could be held accountable for. I think the Tasawwur has got something for us. Jeet Tasawwur bhai.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I've got the 2 spiritual cures for 2 of the problems. So one of the messages that we received was that somebody was suffering with long-term eye illnesses, as well as other problems as well. Yeah. And they wanted istikhara doing. The code name was Apple.
Apple.
So this particular spiritual cure regarding the eye illnesses, inshallah. So it mentions that recite Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahimu, Ya Allahu, Ya Salamu. 41 times with Durood Sharif, once before and after. Take some water into both hands, blow upon that water, rub upon the face and as well as the eyes. And it says that the duration of treatment is 7 consecutive days. So you need to
Can
be
you repeat
7.
that again? Because obviously you did.
Inshallah, I will do, yeah. So 7 consecutive days, so they don't miss any day in between.
Any time during the day?
Yeah, there's no fixed time,
Okay.
but the duration is 7 days. So they need to do it continuously for 7 days and not miss any day in between. And what they will read is Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahimu, Ya Allahu, Ya Salamu. Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahimu, Ya Allahu, Ya Salamu. 41 times, Durood Sharif once before and after. And they've taken some water in the hands, then blow upon that water, and then rub on the face as well as the eyes. And the other message, which was regarding wrongful conviction.
Okay. But there's a third one as well, wasn't there? There's all the body pick as well.
So wrongfully convicted. So here, this is from Scorpion on a Frog, which is one of the beautiful booklets which Amir al-Sunnah have written, which can be downloaded from the Dawud Islami website, www.dawudislami.net. And it's page number 28. And there's actually 2 spiritual cures there. I'll mention one of them. So spiritual cure number 21, it mentions that anybody who's subjected to unlawful court case, he should recite the following 654 times. 654 times. Ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram. Ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram. Ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram. So 654 times, Durood Sharif once before and after on the actual date of the trial or the case, inshallah. And inshallah, that person will, or the verdict will be in his favor, inshallah. Jazakallah. I'll get the third one.
Okay, Jazakallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, viewers of my channel, we're talking about again time, and we're saying we're just doing a self-analysis. You know, the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla is such that we could enter paradise because of one good deed. But at the same time, the wrath of Allah Azza wa Jalla is such that we could enter the hellfire because of one sin that we have committed. So let's say we've got one sin a day.
Lord.
365 sins, and that's only one sin a day. If we are honest with ourselves, how many sins did we commit today? It's not even the end of the day yet, but how many sins did we commit today? And if we think about that and think to ourselves that we could be held accountable for them sins, then what are we doing? You know, people have, again, we have this false mindset that, oh, I'm reading my namaz 5 times a day, aren't I? Yeah? There was a person, he worshipped Allah Azza wa Jal on a mountain for 500 years. And on that mountain for 500 years, Allah Azza wa Jal had a stream that used to run down the mountain, a finger width, and the water used to gather at the bottom of the mountain. And every day, a pomegranate, a beautiful sweet pomegranate, used to come out of this tree and fall into the water. And every day the person would come down and he would eat the pomegranate, and then he would go up to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. And when he passed away, Allah Azza wa Jal said to the angels, through my mercy, take this person to paradise. And the person said, Ya Allah Azza wa Jal, not through your mercy, through my good deeds. You know, I've been worshipping you for 500 years. And Allah Azza wa Jal says, through my mercy, take this person to paradise. And the second time he said, but Ya Allah, what about my 500 years of good deeds? Surely it's because of that I'm going to paradise. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla said, make this person accountable for the blessings that I have given him. 500 years of worship for the eyesight of one eye. Now take him to the hellfire and punish him. Then this person, as he'd been dragged to the hellfire, he said, Ya Allah, take me to the paradise through your mercy. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla said, take this person to paradise through my mercy. It is only through the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla that we'll enter paradise. So we need to think to ourselves, what are we doing with our time? What I want to do, viewers of the channel, I want to make you think about the time that we are using and what time we are wasting. And so I'm going to give you 10, inshallah, Madani pearls of how to utilize your time properly to get the full benefit of it. Number one, if we look at, and this is probably the hardest one, it's the easiest one, and it's the one that will generate the most time. And the number one thing is, stop committing sins. You stop committing sins, all of a sudden, how much time have you got? I'm going to give you a little task to do. And I'm not saying that this task that I'm going to give you is full of sins. But on my phone, I found out on the settings, you can go on it and see your activity over the last 7 days. And it tells you what your activity's been. How much time you spent checking messages, how much time you spent on social media. And when you look at that and you think to yourself, well, out of that time that I spent on social media, how much of that time was beneficial? How much of that time did I accumulate sins? And if you went on social media and did not listen to lectures, listen to bayans, listen to the wazai, listen to the nas, listen to the kalams, or whatever it is, then what you were doing was most likely accumulating sins. And if you look at that timing and think to yourself, I spent this amount of time, I'm going to be held accountable for that. If I stop doing that, just that one portion, how much time will I generate in a week? I remember saying to some brothers that if you were to look at that time, the time that you spend on social media, negate that time, and that time, just that time, nothing else, divide it in 4. And just that time, divide it in 4 and use that time to read the Quran. And then see how much of the Quran you'll read on a weekly basis. Just removing the social media, because if you're using social media for acquiring good deeds, then all well and good. But if you're not, then you're wasting time. Utilize that. I'm not asking you to give me 100% of that time. I'm asking you to go on your phone after this program, look at your settings, see how much time you spend on social media, divide that by 4 and give that time to reading the Quran. And then you tell me after a week how much Quran you've read. And I was shocked how much time I, reading messages on WhatsApp. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is how much time we spend on the phone, yeah? And it made me think about how much time, and this is an excuse that we make that we don't have time. So, all right, I'm talking about social media here, but generally, if we remove them portions of our life in which we are committing sins, then inshallah, that will generate time. And within that, there are many things. That gathering in which zikr of Allah Azza wa Jalla is not made, in that gathering in which salat is not recited on the Prophet of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then that gathering can become a burden for you. And it's up to Allah Azza wa Jalla whether He punishes you or whether He forgives you for that gathering. So if we waste time, we're sitting in a gathering where we're just chilling, and unfortunately we're not just chilling. When we sit in a gathering where we're not remembering Allah Azza wa Jal, in a sitting in a gathering that we're not sending salat upon the Prophet of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then undoubtedly in that gathering we're gossiping, we're backbiting, we're telling tales, we're committing all sorts of sins. So even if we're sitting in a gathering and doing nothing, then we could be held accountable for that because we've wasted that time. But inevitably we're sitting in the gathering, we're not only doing nothing, but we're accumulating sins. So it's something that we need to think about. Think about our time. Think about the sins that we have committed. And it is stated, the second Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Sayyidina Umar al-Faruq said, even if it is one sin that you commit, even if it is one sin that you commit, it brings with you 10 evils. Number 1, the sinner earns the wrath of Allah. He pleases the accursed shaitan. He is distant from paradise. He comes close to the hellfire. He harms his most beloved thing, i.e. his own life. He corrupts his inner self. He offends the angels that are appointed to write the good deeds. He causes grief to the Prophet of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he makes the heavens and the earth and the entire creation a witness to his disobedience. And he deceives all humans and disobeys Allah Azza wa Jalla. Viewers of Madani Channel, I remember reading once that someone said that we should never think of something being a small sin. When you think of it, it's a small thing. Don't think of the sin being small. Think of who you're disobeying. You're disobeying Allah Azza wa Jalla here. You're disobeying Allah Azza wa Jalla there. And you're accumulating them sins by disobeying Allah. And if we were to try and live our lives where we don't commit sins, and even if that time we don't utilize it to do good deeds, then at least during that time we're safeguarding ourselves from those sins, which we will be held accountable for. You will be held accountable for every single deed that you have done. And it's something that you need to be wary of. I think Tasawwur Bhai's got a wazifa, inshallah. Tasawwur Bhai.
One of the messages in regards to whether they mention about the uncle, that whenever they think something's going to go right and it ends up, not going how it was planned. So I've got a wazifa out for them. Success in both worlds, inshallah. So this particular spiritual cure, it mentions that recite this abundantly, inshallah, and one will be successful in both worlds. So not just here in the world, but also in the hereafter as well. So this is something to take away as well for everybody. So not just this particular person who sent the message in, and it's simply Ya Alimu, Ya Alimu, Ya Alimu, yeah. So recite this in abundance, Durood Sharif before and
There's
after.
no like, just
no time limits, no amount, just in abundance. Yeah.
Ya Alimu.
Yeah, simply
Ya
Ya
Alimu.
Alimu.
Inshallah, on the way home tonight.
Inshallah.
That's going to be my wazifa for the way home, inshallah.
So,
another one here
for the
there was
world
another one of that body pains of the osteoarthritis, yeah? And you can have a look at that one as well. And I'll read this one out as well here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My mother is not well with a problem in her ear. She says there is a constant noise that she can hear, sounding like a drum beating. The doctors have said that it is some kind of blockage in the middle ear, which they cannot do anything about. Is there any special remedy for this at all? We're coming back to, I said I'm going to give you 10 tips of how to, utilize your time. We mentioned the first one was stop committing sins, which will, if we're honest with ourselves, it'll create a huge portion of time in our lives. The second is to examine our lives and ask ourselves, what do we do in a daily basis that I do not benefit from? That needs to be removed from our life. That activity, whatever it is that I have no benefit from at all, remove them futile acts from your life. It is from the excellence of a Muslim to shun that which does not concern him. Hakim al-Ummad, Mufti Ahmad Yar Khan Naimi states, the complete Muslim is he who refrains from such speech, actions, gestures or habits that are not beneficial for him in this world or the hereafter. One should perform those actions or say such things that are beneficial for him in this world and the hereafter. So that's the second point that we need to look at as well. So we mentioned two things now. The third thing that we need to do is to make good intentions. Make good intentions. And as a result of making good intentions, whatever you do on a day-to-day routine will become a blessing for you as well. For example, I'm going to drink some water now. I'm making the intention that it quenches my thirst. And in quenching my thirst, it wets my throat and I can speak to you easily and I can explain what I'm saying to you today. In the same way that make the intention that when I'm eating something that, Ya Allah, with the strength that I will gain from this food, the blood that's created in my body, inshallah Azza wa Jal, I'll be able to perform ibadat, I'll be able to get up in the middle of the night to perform tahajjud, I'll be able to do this, I'll be able to do this, and I'll be able to do this. So whatever you do, when you leave your house, make the intention that, Ya Allah, I'm leaving my house now to make an halal livelihood to place, feed for my family. So in your day-to-day routine, if you make good intentions, then them good intentions will also become a means of blessings for you. So that time, you're doing the same routine. You're doing nothing. I'm not asking you to change anything. All I'm asking you is to tweak things, to make good intentions. And by making good intentions, that same action will become a means of reward for you as well. Something
else you could have added was I'll take a break while I'm drinking. So
I'll take a break.
And we'll listen to this. We'll listen to the speech.
We'll take a break. Yeah, I'll take a break now whilst I'm drinking this water so we can listen to Tasawwur, inshallah. That's my intention as well.
Spiritual cure of today. Khalid bhai, nearly every other person is complaining that we make dua and our dua is not accepted. So today's spiritual cure is that if you do this particular spiritual cure, inshallah, your du'as will be accepted. Not only will your du'as be accepted, but you'll become mustajabud da'wat. Meaning that he whose du'as are always accepted.
Allahu Akbar.
Subhanallah. So it's very simple. Very simple.
I think before it comes on the screen, I think if everybody that's home now, I would advise you all to get your phones out, get your cameras ready, and take a picture of this wazifa, inshallah. I'm gonna try. I think I've got it on my phone anyway, so I'm lucky. Take a picture of this wazifa, and if it's a long one, then
very simple.
It's very simple.
When I mention it, you'll be surprised.
But the blessing of taking a picture of it is not only will you act upon it, but you can also pass it to others, and they can benefit from it.
A means of making it out.
Again,
intentions.
Again, making the intention. We're talking about intention. Make the intention that I'm going to take this picture now. I'm going to send this to people so that other people can benefit from it as well. It's only a few messages that you're going to send. It's not going to cost you anything, and inshallah you get the reward as well.
The rewards of whoever you pass it on to. So you multiply.
Inshallah. Go on, let's see it then.
Yeah. So simply, Khalid bhai, Ya Wahhabu. Ya Wahhabu, Ya Wahhabu, 7 times. Durood Sharif before and after. No fixed time. Any time in the day. Any time, in the evening. So whenever you're free, you recite this 7 times. Durood Sharif before and after. Inshallah, your du'as will not only just be accepted, but you'll become mustajabu da'wat, where all your du'as, inshallah, will be accepted.
Any time, any amount, just...
No, just the amount has to be 7 times. Durood Sharif before and after, but there's no fixed time.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah, of practice of this.
Inshallah, I'll get you to do dua for me afterwards, inshallah. Mashallah. Again, it's on your screen now, inshallah. I think if we remember these, whenever you watch this spiritual cures, then what happens is people phone in and they ask for spiritual cures, and it might not be you. You know, you might not need that specific spiritual cure. You might not have the earache or the stomach ache or the headache that, you know, we're getting the spiritual cure for. But again, when we're talking today about earning blessings, if at the same time you make a note of them, and if you make a note of them and you send your messages around to people, or you just keep it on your phone, and then if someone has that problem, you pass it on to them that, oh, I saw it on this program, that this was a wazifa for this. Inshallah, they will benefit from it, and inshallah, Azza wa Jal, you'll be rewarded from it as well. I have one here. Salam, in the last few months, I've had problems with the skin around my eyes being dry, very sensitive and painful to touch. Can you please give me a Ruhani Ilaj for that? Inshallah, Azza wa Jal, the Sabr is on the case. Sometimes we make an intention to do something and we can't fulfill it. For whatever reason, the Prophet of Allah said, whoever makes an intention to perform a good deed but is unable to carry out one good deed is written for him. And on that note, viewers of my channel, what we should do is, you know, you see sportsmen and they all have what they call a PB, and a PB is a personal best. So the weightlifter, he might have a PB that I can lift 70 kilos, and I'm going to try my best every day. Every day I'm going to try my best to lift 75 kilos. And he strives every day to lift 75 kilos, right? In the same way that someone runs, he runs the 100 meters, 200, he tries to beat his PB. What we should be doing is, we should look at our lives, and every day we should try and achieve a PB, a personal best. Every week, every month, every year should be our PB. We should look at ourselves and think to ourselves, what was my personal best year? What was my personal best day? Was it today? No, I'm going to better it tomorrow. And if we have this mindset that we're going to strive to have our personal best every single day, then inshallah Azza wa Jal will be rewarded. Now, the person who strives for his personal best, the weightlifter, the runner, he doesn't always achieve it. He doesn't always achieve it, but he makes the intention every day that I'm going to try to achieve it. In the same way, we make these good intentions every day, every week, every month, every year, every Ramadan, that this I'm going to have my best. You know, and now we should sit down and plan out. You know, they had, what do they call about this thing about the good year?
How do you know
New Year, what do they call them? New resolutions. New resolutions. Separate topic, anything else. But if we make these, I'm not going to call them New Year resolutions, New Year intentions, make New Year intentions, that you are going to make every day your personal best, every week, every month, every year your personal best, until Allah Azza wa Jal gives you.
Your personal best that you're mentioning. The things, you know, like the person strives and he tries to beat that. Like for example, the weightlifter, like you mentioned, that 70 was his best and he aims to go for 75. And like the runner, he does the sprint of, I don't know, 100 meters in so many seconds and he tries to beat it. But there's a lot of work in the background.
There is.
It's not just that he just grabs the 75 kilos and tries to pick it up. No, because he's not going to be able to lift like that. There's a lot of work, a lot of practice and training that goes on in the background. And this is when we're trying to do this personal best of whichever good deed that we're working towards, we need to build up to it and build up to it.
I remember reading somewhere that a 10 3-minute round fight in boxing, he has to, for every 3-minute round, he has to box 300 rounds. In training for that. It's just in preparation for that. But you're right, in the same way that, you know, if the month of Ramadan is coming and you're not reading your Quran now, prepare, start reading now. Open the Quran, start reading a verse today. Become attached to it. And I think what we should do is right now, make an intention that how much Quran am I going to read before Ramadan, and how much Quran am I going to read during Ramadan. You know, during Ramadan, performing good deeds is easier. A lot of people are able to read a whole Quran in that month. But if we make an intention now, that from now to Ramadan, I'm going to read at least one Quran, and during the month of Ramadan, I will read at least one Quran. Or if you want to have a bigger target, then all well and good. But this is just a suggestion from me that from now till then, one Quran, and then during the month of Ramadan, one Quran. Make these and then work towards them. In the same way, like you said in the background, you're working towards this goal. You're working towards completing that Quran in the month of Ramadan. You're working towards completing that Quran. You know, when the day before Ramadan, you're not going to be able to read the whole Quran. You're going to have to, prepare yourself starting now. Start now. Reading the Quran, start now offering your namaz, start now offering the Sunnah, start now offering the nawafil, start now getting up. If you were to fast every Monday and Thursday, then when the month of Ramadan comes, it will be just second nature to you. And you won't find it hard. And what happens is, shaitanic whispers come into our mind when the month of Ramadan starts. And we say, you know what, I'm going to read a whole Quran this month. And the first day, for whatever reason, you're not read it. The second day, you're not read it. And then you think, I've missed 2. I've fallen behind now. I'm never going to catch up on her. Chalo, next year. This again is a shaitanic whisper. If you cannot complete the whole 30, then at least complete the 28, the 27. Don't give up. Keep at it. And don't say to, oh, if I can't complete it, then what's the point of reading it? No, whatever you read, whatever verse you read, whatever word you read, you will be blessed, you will be rewarded for every single letter that you read in the Quran.
The unfortunate thing, Khalid bhai, is that we'll take the Quran Pak out in Ramazan Sharif and just read it in Ramadan. So then, because of all the 11 months that have gone by, our reading might be perfect as well, but because we haven't read for 11 months, remember things get rusty. Even metal gets rusty. Of course they do. So a person in the same way, he's reading, it gets rusty, so he needs to catch that flow again, that recitation correctly, etc. So if he's doing it already, this is all prepping as well. If you're reading a little bit, maybe a little bit, but daily, then
I think it's a very important point that you just mentioned there. And it's not just our Quran, it's our wuzu, our namaz, our ghusl. That, we learnt it 30, 40 years ago, right? When we were in the madrasa, and we won't talk about what our madrasas were like 30, 40 years ago. They bring back bad memories. But the madrasas 30, 40 years ago, you learnt it. And we all say, yeah, I learned my Quran. And so, you get those people that when they go on the Madani Channel, what are you going to teach? We're going to teach namaz. Well, I know my namaz. Okay, but have you ever had it checked? Well, why do I need to get it checked? I learnt it. I know how to read my namaz. I always use this example for the viewers of Madani Channel and everywhere I go. If you think that after 30 years, you don't need to get your namaz checked, your wuzu checked, your Quran recitation checked, why do you service your car every 12 months?
That just came from my MOT.
Why do you service your car? Forget the MOT. Yeah? That's something that's by law, isn't it? If you got a brand new car, you service it, don't you? Why? Why do you service it? It's a brand new car. You just took it out of the showroom. No. I got to have this service history. So you've got a service history for your car. Where's your service history for your salah? Where's your service history for your wuzu, for your namaz? Do you have a service history for that? Have you ever thought about servicing it? And you know what happens when you go and get your car serviced? And they'll just, change the oil. They say, mashallah, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, you feel peace of mind that there's nothing wrong with my car. Go and get your salah service, you'll have peace of mind your salah is right. Go and get your wuzu service, your ghusl service, your Quran service, and then you'll have peace of mind that everything's okay. Otherwise, it's always in the back of your mind, I've not serviced my car for 2 years, it's going to break down. We should have that same fear that I've not serviced my salah for the last 30 years, maybe I'm reading it wrong.
I mean, the car we're doing for peace of mind. Why don't we do the same thing here?
That's what I'm trying to say to you. If that peace of mind is you think to yourself, if I don't get it serviced, this car might break down. Why don't we have that same mindset that if I don't get my salah serviced, I might be making mistakes. If I don't get my wuzu serviced. And there has been people, you've met people, we've all met people, that when they've got the wuzu checked, when they've got the ghusl checked, when somebody sits down to them, and I remember going somewhere, I'm not going to mention the place, and I just mentioned in the speech about, that we need to learn these things. And the Imam Sahib was there, and the Imam Sahib says, tell everybody the farais of ghusl. And you know what? There was about 150 people there. And these 150 people, when you're doing a speech, you can see how many people are paying attention, yeah? You've got about the majority of the audience are like this. Focused, and then you got the rest of them are like this. The rest of them are looking like this, yeah? But when I was giving the 3 farais of ghusl, 150 people like this, all listening, and I'm thinking, something's not right here, yeah? Something's not right.
Some eyes were wider open.
All of a sudden, the eyes opened up, and I'm thinking, and you just got this feeling, yeah? That people don't know this. And I pray to Allah Azza wa Jalla that I was wrong, but then at the same time I'm thinking to myself that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given us the opportunity to tell these people. And this is something that we need to be wary of. And there's probably, unfortunately, many people out there. And I remember a famous story that was mentioned in one of the, I think, risalas of Amir al-Sunnat, a very old risala, and he mentioned that a Madani Kafla went into a masjid and they were teaching the farais of ghusl, and an old man was sitting in the corner and started crying, yeah? And they asked him, Babaji, what's up? Everything okay? And he said, I've been listening to you and I've just realized for the last 60 years, I've been reading my Quran in a state of impurity. I've been reading my salah in a state of impurity. I've been sat in the masjid many times in a state of impurity. And I never knew this. I never knew this. Because what happens is, alhamdulillah, within Dawah Islam, within the madrasa system, these things are taught. But not every madrasa teaches these things. And people slip through the net. They slip through the net where they're not taught this. And because they're not taught this, they don't know it. They don't know that there's certain things that I need to do before I can read the Quran. I need to be pure. I need to be, impure for ghusl and the wuzu and all of these things. Do we know these things? And when we don't know these things, then you may think you're performing good deeds, but in fact you're accumulating sins. And so we need to be very wary of this.
In fact, just a question, Khalid Bhai, that farais of ghusl, Just that question itself, rise of ghusl for some is eye opens, because they think you just wash yourself.
He says the 3 fries of ghusl, the water, towel and soap. Yeah, that's what people don't think the 3 fries. I'll tell you what, we'll mention the 3 fries of ghusl. I hope that everybody knows it. The first farz of ghusl is to get water in your mouth and get it to the back of your throat. Yeah. And what I advise people to do is, normally what happens is, you know, when you get in a shower, you got warm water. What I do is I advise people to do this part with cold water. And there's a reason why. Because when you get warm water in your mouth, you don't know where it's gone. You know, when you get cold water in your mouth, then you can feel everywhere it's gone. You know, when you switch it around, you feel it, don't you? Yeah? The same way, it's got to go right to the back of the throat. You've got to gargle it there. And unless the whole of the mouth, including the back of the throat, gets wet, then your farz is not complete. The second, again, people aren't aware of this, unfortunately, is to get water up your nose to that soft, warm part. And you know, you feel a bit of discomfort. You know, you feel it. You know, when you sniff the water up and it touches that soft bone, you actually feel a little bit discomfort, but you need to get that water up. But one of the precautions that you also need to make before you do that is people, what they have is they have dirt inside their nose. So imagine this is my hand and I've got a layer of dirt on it and I put water on my hand. I'll put water here, but where the layer of dirt is, there'll just be water on top of the dirt. So my hand is not clean. So we need to make sure that we clean our noses out so there's no dirt in the nose, and then take the water up. Make sure then you take the water up and get it up there to that soft part of the bone. And then the third, which we all think we know about, again, we think we know about it, is to make sure the whole of the body gets wet. Now you say, well, yeah, I do that. But sometimes what happens is the underarms, if you're in the crouching position under the knees, certain parts of your body, you know, if we've got layers of fat or whatever it is, they don't get wet. Yeah, they don't get, sometimes behind the ears don't get wet. Sometimes the folds in your arms or your belly or your back, you know, backside, they don't get wet. You need to make sure behind the knees, in between the toes. Some people have toes like that. Some people have toes that are very, very closed. Yeah. And what happens is when they pour water over them, imagine you're pouring water over my hand here, it's not going to get inside the fingers. So we need to make sure that we open them up and get them all wet. And some people don't make these precautions. So it's easy to say, yes, the whole of the body has to get wet. But what happens is if we don't take these precautions in mind, then what happens is, yes, we've had a shower. Yes, we think we all smell nice now and we're clean. But you've not made the whole of your body wet. And if you've not made the whole of your body wet, yeah, then your ghusl is not complete. Not even one hair. And you know, it sounds easy. You think, well, you know, if I stand under the shower long enough, I'm going to get wet, aren't I? No, it doesn't always happen. Yeah. And so that's why when you stand under the shower, you need to make sure you make all of these precautions to make sure that every part of your body, all of the folds, everywhere, every part of your body gets wet.
The definition of washing is important as well. Where 2 drops go over each
Again, part. It needs at least 2 drops of water needs to be over there. People just, you know, rub their hand with water. It needs to make sure it's proper wet. So, you know, stand under the shower and make sure every part of your body gets wet. At least 2 drops of the water goes to every part of your body. Make sure that you know, all of these precautions that I just mentioned, the ears, the back of the ears, the fold, the arms, every part of your body. Even people have said that they've realized afterwards that even the elbows didn't get wet, which I find hard to believe, but it happens. Some people must get in the shower and I don't know how they stand there, but it must happen. Yeah, it does happen. So you need to make sure, and so make sure you take all of these precautions. Now, if you do not do this, these 3 things that I've just mentioned, then you are in a state of impurity. And if you're in a state of impurity, then you are committing a sin when you perform your salah. You're committing a sin when you're reading the Quran. So when ghusl becomes farz upon you, if you do not do these things that I just mentioned, yes, there are other things that are, you know, mustahab and etc. But if you don't do these things, then you are in a state of impurity. So we're talking today about utilizing our time. We don't want to be utilizing our time thinking we're performing good deeds, but ultimately we're committing sins.
Just mention a few messages, replies to some messages. One was a bodily pain in the message where it was mentioned that somebody was suffering from bodily pains. By reciting Ya Ghaniyu, Ya Ghaniyu, Ya Ghaniyu abundantly, inshallah, this will be a relief to the bodily pains, inshallah.
We have one here.
In regards to in regards to the message we received where somebody was hearing like a buzzing or a drumming noise in the ear, which was not comfortable in itself, but also preventing them to go to sleep, etc. This particular spiritual cure, Ya Sami'u, Ya Sami'u, Ya Sami'u. It needs to be recited 21 times. Durood Sharif 3 times before, 3 times after, and then perform them into both ears.
MashaAllah.
Inshallah, this noise that they're hearing, etc., inshallah, should fade away, inshallah.
Okay, I've got one here. Salam, my younger sister hates all of her siblings and our mother. And she says on our faces that she hates us. And if we say just to obey our mother and we don't want anything else from you, in return she says, she, our mother, is not a queen. When other siblings are doing, why should I? Our father died a few years back. She even hates him. She only answers in a good manner to our Babi. Can you please do istikhara? Code name, Mano. All right, what were we talking about? We're talking about time, weren't we? Talking about time, of how we need to value our time. We're talking about intentions. The other way that you can improve on the use of your time. There's a saying in English, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Meaning that you multitask. You can multitask in your life. So in our life, there are times where we are doing certain things, but at that same time, we could also do other things to earn our reward. And I'll give you an example. I remember meeting a person. I was in Australia, mashallah. You were in Australia recently. And there was a doctor I met there. And I don't know if you ever went to Newcastle. From Sydney to Newcastle was a 2.5-hour drive, yeah? And he lived in Sydney. He was a GP, but he had a practice in Newcastle. So he used to drive 2.5 hours there and 2.5 hours back every day. It was a motorway, so it was a good road, but 2.5 hours. And I said, what do you do for him at 2.5 hours? He said, I've got a whole list of wazaif that I read.
MashaAllah.
And every day I read my wazaif, and it takes me literally 2 hours and 25 minutes, and for the last 5 minutes, I just get there. And so, you know, I remember reading once that, you know, how far is it the place that you work, yeah? And he said, if there's no traffic, it's 1,000 Durood Pak. If there's traffic, then it's 2,000 Durood Pak. So it's utilizing that time, isn't it? Utilizing that time. So there'll be a lot of people that can manage the time, and they can do be multitasking. You could be on a production line, you know, putting notes on a wheel. You can be doing zikr of Allah. You can be doing tasks. And at the same time in our lives, and I've said it before, that in our lives there's times where we're waiting for things to happen. We're waiting for the next customer. We're waiting to see the doctor. We're waiting to see the dentist. We're waiting for our next job. If we're, you know, if you're a taxi driver or whatever, or you're sitting in the shop and you're waiting for your customer, you're sitting there. You know, you're waiting for things to happen. And as Muslims, we should not waste any time. Our time is one of the most precious commodities that you've got. And we shouldn't waste that time. And so we should utilize that time. And if you don't have a book in front of you, you don't have the Quran in front of you, then do the zikr of Allah. Do these wazaif that the Samarwa is given. If you can't remember them wazaif, then at least recite Durood Pak upon the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you can't do, then recite the kalma, recite something. So utilize that time. Don't waste that time. Who knows that one extra Durood Pak that you recite today might make all the difference on the day of judgment.
There'll be one good deed short to enter paradise, and one will be asking.
Well, this is what I'm saying. On that day, you will have these regrets. On that day, you will have these regrets. That what did I do with that time? And the example I give as well is, imagine I offer you a job of £20 an hour. You think, that's a good job, I'll take it. And to Savarba, you can work as many hours as you want, okay? You can work as many hours as you want. But in that month, there's going to be one night that's not £20, but I'm going to pay you like £2 million an hour. But there's a catch. I'm not going to tell you which night it is. Now you tell me.
Every night you.
Honestly, you would, wouldn't you?
Fishing for it, yeah.
Every day you'll be hoping, and at the end, imagine at the end of the month, getting your pay packet, yeah, your wage slip, and realizing that you didn't hit that night. That night you were playing football. That night you were on your PC tablet. You were playing console games, or that night you were chilling. Whatever you were doing on that night, think how upset you would be. Yeah? Allah Azza wa Jalla is blessing us with the night in the month of Ramadan. And on that night, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying that night you will gain more reward than 1,000 months. And 1,000 months, get your calculator, is over 83 years blessings in one night. You know, and if you work at the calculations of that, how many days we're talking? We're talking about 1,000 months. We're talking about 30,000 nights. You can earn what you can earn in 30,000 days. The sawab, you can earn it in that one night. Viewers of Madani Channel, you've been watching Spiritual Cures. We come to the end of the program today. Until the next time, keep watching Madani Channel. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
May Allah heal you from whatever pain you are suffering from. May Allah heal you from whatever whatever pain